morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to go and take another look at Hoopa. Now, this is a Hoopa from Unified Minds. It is a Hoopa that has, frankly, been out for a while now. But the thing is, this Hoopa is just about to get a whole heap better. Now, Hoopa does have an attack for free colourless energy that does 80 damage and is not affected by weakness or resistance. No, ladies and gentlemen, that is not our focus today. Our focus is on the first attack, Evil Admonition, which incidentally is a reason why it's seen so much play up till now, and it has seen quite a bunch of play. What it does is for a single colourless energy, it does 10 damage, which is fine, but it's not. No, it's not even fine. I'm lying to you. It sucks, right? But it also does 20 more damage for each ability that your opponent has on their Pokemon in play. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, makes a whole heap of difference. And this has been good since it came out. There are certain decks against which this is just remarkably good. I mean, one of the big ones here, it takes something like Malamar. Malamar comes in, and Malamar itself has an ability. But it tends to be played with Giratina, who also has an ability. And a weakness to darkness. So even if your opponent doesn't play many abilities, they're still going to see their Giratina get taken out by Hoopa. But this is one deck, right? It's just one deck. Well, having said that, Naganadel decks, they're not weak. But they tend to use a new Naganadel GX, which has a really nice drawing ability, and the Naganadel from Lost Thunder, which has a great little ability, allowing it to attach energy to itself on the bench. Frankly, ladies and gentlemen, it's a deck that tends to play a fair bunch of abilities. And Hoopa can be just that, right? Hoopa can be a Pokemon that comes in, that isn't hitting for weakness, and just does a little bit of damage. I mean, Naganadel's got 130 HP, right? Which means your opponent needs to have 6 Pokemon in play with abilities for you to hit 120 plus the 10 base, and that will give you a straight one-hit KO. It might work sometimes, but if your opponent doesn't have a full bench or has one Pokemon down without an ability, you're not getting the KO. The thing to remember about Hoopa, one of the reasons it's been so good, single energy basic Pokemon. It could not be any easier to tech into decks, other than if it was a colourless energy, but that's asking a little bit too much. So up until now, Hoopa has basically done two things rather well. Firstly, it has been really good at taking out weak Pokemon, especially things like Giratina. And secondly, it's just been a good basic Pokemon single energy attacker against decks that play lots of abilities. But you see, hitting for weakness hasn't been Hoopa's forte, because up till now in the Pokemon trading card game, the only Pokemon that have been weak to darkness have been ghost Pokemon. They come through in the trading card game as psychic, but instead of being weak to psychic, look at something like Naganadel, they are weak to darkness and resistant to fighting, look at something like Giratina. And the problem is, ghost Pokemon haven't really been that big. Miss Magius has seen a fair amount of play, but it sees play because it's got the ability that lets you KO itself and then draw till you got 7 cards in hand. And they even use Duskstone, so it's not even like Miss Drevis is sitting there on the bench for a while. Bit upsetting. So you've got Giratina, but that's pretty much it. I mean, Gengar and Mimikyu, to be fair. Gengar and Mimikyu is weak and does see play. Problem is, you basically need to do 120 to get a one-hit KO here. And either your opponent has 5 abilities and you hit 110, or they've got 6 abilities, you hit 130. So you basically need your opponent to have 6 Pokemon with abilities out to one-hit KO Gengar and Mimikyu. But of course, that is literally impossible, because Gengar and Mimikyu doesn't have an ability and will be one of the Pokemon in play, which kind of ruins things just a little bit. But you see, ladies and gentlemen, the change that is coming in Sword and Shield is the Pokemon that are psychic are now just weak to darkness. All psychic Pokemon are taking on the weakness profile of traditionally ghost Pokemon. So in DDV here is a very good example. In DDV, is a psychic Pokemon in the Sword and Shield video games. There's no secondary typing, indeed EV is just a psychic Pokemon. And it's weak to darkness, and it is resistant to fighting. Now, as a side note, ghost Pokemon like Poltegeist, for instance, will remain with that same profile, which is to say weak to darkness and resistant to fighting. Having said that, Poltegeist has 60 HP, so probably not something about which we need to get terribly worried or excited, depending on how you're feeling. But indeed EV itself looks like a really good Pokemon. I'll pop a link in the description. But I showed you a deck the other day using Stonejourner V and indeed Stonejourner V Max. And basically the point of this was big bulky Pokemon, they're going to stay alive for a little while. And then indeed EV lets you once during your turn heal 20 from your active Pokemon. Plus, it's got an attack for a Psychic double colourless that does 10 damage base, plus 60 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. That's pretty good. So we expect indeed EV to see a whole bunch of play, but let's be clear about this. I'm not saying Hoopa from Unified Minds is way better now because it hits weakness on indeed EV. No, that's not the point. I am saying that Hoopa is way better now because it hits weakness on all psychic Pokemon. And it doesn't even matter if you don't like any of the psychic Pokemon from Sword and Shield, though I do think there are a bunch to like. What matters is that any psychic Pokemon moving forward will have this weakness. Wobbuffet V. This is a nice little Pokemon, lets you swap all damage counters on this Pokemon with those on your opponent's active Pokemon. Fun little card. Of course, it's now weak to darkness, which makes it, to be honest, possible to KO. It's got 220 HP, so if your opponent's got 5 Pokemon with abilities, you'll hit 110 and then go and get a KO. Now, Wobbuffet doesn't have an ability, so maybe it's not hideously likely, but again, even if you're not buying the whole Wobbuffet thing, that's alright. There will be plenty of others. How about the Galarian Rapidash that just turns off all special conditions for all of your Pokemon? Or maybe none of them. Fine. Just wait until Sword and Shield 2, and Sword and Shield 3, and Sword and Shield 4, and all the mini sets. But there is actually one other card which is helping out quite nicely with Hoopa, and that is that we are getting Balloon, which will reduce your retreat cost by 2. So whereas Hoopa before would look at cards like Escape Board and U-Turn Board and go, gosh darn it, I've got a retreat cost of 2, these lower my retreat cost by 1, that's not helping. You now look at it and go, oh, now I can retreat for free, life is good. And the thing is that Hoopa's been seeing a lot of play as a one-off in decks when it's not really hitting very much for weakness. Great counter to Giratina, but that's largely been it. But now it's going to be hitting so much more. I have seen Wobbuffet see a bit of play, I've seen indeed EV see quite a bit of play, and okay, they are the two from the set which are likely to see the most play, but there will be more coming. I think Hoopa is about to become a whole heap better. To be fair, all Darkness Pokemon just got better. You see, Fairy Pokemon have always resisted Darkness. Now, to be fair, I cannot tell you whether that is still true, because there is not a single Fairy Pokemon that has actually been revealed from Sword and Shield yet. I went through this in my weakness and resistance explanation video, I'll pop a link in the description. We assume Fairy Pokemon will keep their Darkness resistance, we don't actually know. So up till now, Darkness Pokemon have been hitting weakness on Ghost Pokemon, which is a small subset of Psychic, while being resisted by every Fairy Pokemon, which is a little bit unfair. Now, we assume they're still going to be resisted by Fairy, though we've not seen anything to prove or disprove that. But they're hitting weakness against all Psychic Pokemon, which means they just got a whole heap better. And all Darkness Pokemon got this bump. But if you want a Darkness Pokemon to come in and hit for weakness, Hoopa's your boy. Now, don't get me wrong, there'll be some decks out there that just do not play abilities. But there'll be plenty more decks that either do play abilities, or they see you're playing a Hoopa and they go, ha ha ha, I'm deliberately not going to bench a Pokemon that I want to bench to stop you hitting for extra damage. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Anytime your opponent is deliberately not doing what they want to do to try and hurt you, that is very much a win for you. But at this stage, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to know what you think about Hoopa and its place in the format going forward, and whether you're going to be playing it in a bunch of your decks. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice, and then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where you can find out about games that don't have Pokemon in, but are still awesome. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.